So France's, why does that word sound strange when I say it? France's Emmanuel Macron, he came after Biden because Biden shoved his foot directly in his mouth by saying Putin needs to, quote, be removed from power. So let's take a look at what Macron said in response to that. Mediaite says, in an interview with France's Channel 3 via Reuters, Macron called for Biden to hold his verbal fire, quote, I wouldn't use this type of wording because I continue to hold discussions with President Putin, Macron said. He added, we want to stop the war that Russia has launched in Ukraine without escalation. That's the objective. If this is what we want to do, we should not escalate things, neither with words nor actions. After visiting Ukrainian refugees in Poland on Saturday, reporters asked Biden what the experience of seeing those people made him think as he deals with Putin. Quote, he's a butcher, the president said. In a speech later in the day, Biden said of Putin, for God's sake, this man cannot remain in power. The White House has since walked back the president's comments. Quote, the president's point was that Putin cannot be allowed to exercise power over his neighbors or the region. An unnamed White House official said he was not discussing Putin's power in Russia or regime change. So this is just verification of what I laid out for everybody in the previous segment. This is Macron, who's been more directly dealing with Putin than any other Western leader, at least insofar as I've seen. He's saying, you absolute moron, you absolute dolt, you idiot. If there's any chance of us getting any kind of peace, some negotiated settlement or whatever, it's only going to happen if you acknowledge that their government is their government. You can't say, let's make a deal with you, and by the way, the deal is null and void because we don't even view you as the legitimate authority. So by him saying it, it ossifies everybody's position, and it almost guarantees further conflict. And also, look, there's some speculation that this shows that even if there is some sort of a peace deal reached, the U.S. might be like, we reject it. But hold on now. If Ukraine agrees to something and Russia agrees to something, well, then who the fuck are we as an outside party to say, well, we don't agree to that? You guys are going to have to keep fighting because we don't agree to it. That would be the height of arrogance if the U.S. did that. And with comments like this, you start to wonder, is that something they would say? Is that something they would do? Would they just destroy any potential for peace because they're trying to, through other economic means, squeeze out Putin and change the government? And as I pointed out before, you got to be careful what you wish for. Now, we don't know. It is possible that, let's say, the economic sanctions that have been put on the oligarchs are so extreme that they're like, we can't have this guy stay in power. He's hurting our bottom line too much, and they try to do something to squeeze him out of power, and then maybe it works. Now, is it possible that in a situation like that, you get somebody better? Yeah. But is it also possible that the person could be worse than Putin? Yes. Yes. How many times does history have to teach us this lesson? Look at what happened in Iraq. Look at what happened in Libya. Like, oftentimes, when there's outside meddling, things get worse. And then furthermore, this wouldn't be some sort of movement to democracy either. You know what I mean? And Biden laid this out in his speech, talking about, oh, we need to care about freedom and justice and democracy and whatnot, and saying, oh, the regime has to be changed. It's like, well, is he going to be squeezed out and then the person who's going to be put in there is going to be through a democratic vote? No, it's almost certainly the case that you're going to replace one autocrat with another autocrat. And so I do find like the U.S. cloaking itself in virtuousness to be really disingenuous because, like I always tell you, we support 73% of the world's dictatorships. This idea that we have a principled belief in democracy is laughable. It's laughable. We just want dictators who are kind to our own corporate interests. Like, that's what we want. And we pretend like that's not the case. So anyway, Macron is fed up. Macron is standing up to Biden here, and he's like, can you stop throwing a wrench in our negotiations? Now, don't get me wrong. There's also a million and one ways in which Putin is throwing a wrench in the negotiations too, because Zelensky's made a number of concessions, and Putin is basically still invading. So he's also perhaps not a partner for peace at this moment because he hasn't reached some of the objectives that he views are necessities for him. So he might not be a partner in peace either, but we want to try to get everybody to the table as much as possible and work out some sort of genuine deal. And with the U.S. saying they're posturing as, we're not interested in that. We're interested in squeezing you out more than anything else. So that is not a good thing. And just so everybody understands, and I'm sure most of you know this already, but it bears repeating. The way the global order works is, so the U.S. is the leader. The U.S. is the big dog. And now we have a unipolar world. It looks like it's becoming a multipolar world now. But Macron is effectively subservient to Joe Biden. and France is subservient to U.S. interests. And so for Macron to come out and say this is really like, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And he's behind closed doors, what he's saying is, you fucking jackass. Why would you do this? And it puts the world in more and more danger the more he says stuff like this. Because, they might kick up that, the nuclear risk rating too in Russia over this. They already kicked it up a little bit. They might kick it up even more because now you got the U.S. president talking about you got to be removed from power. There are no upsides to doing it, none whatsoever. So he never should have said it. It's an absolute disaster, and I think the French president is 100% correct. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.